So my session is going to be a bit experimental. I had sort of asked for Post-it notes, but they're not here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to speak. And does anybody have a sheet of paper? Then I'm going to take notes, please. We're essentially here to talk about how I am thinking about gamifying Lagos through a game called Timekeeper. I've called it Timekeeper for now, but it could change. And essentially, Timekeeper is inspired. I don't know, how many of you have been to Lagos before? Anyone here? Okay, so if you've been to Lagos, one of the things that you will find when you get into Lagos is how much time is wasted when you move on a day-to-day basis. And this time that is wasted is from the minute you wake up and find that maybe there's no electricity, to actually trying to get into your car, and maybe because of the heat, your car decides it's going to overheat, or you get into traffic, and maybe somebody has stopped, a bus has stopped in front of you, and you can't get to where you're going to, or maybe you get to the office and for some reason the internet is not working, or maybe you have to travel to somewhere, and then, so essentially time is something that we're constantly negotiating living in Lagos. And I recently set up an organization that is essentially looking at how we can design, co-design solutions to the different problems that exist in Lagos. And that's by saying, who are the people that are experiencing this problem, and how can we sit with them and say, these are the ways in which we can develop solutions. And so for me, Timekeeper is a game that essentially says, how do we navigate, if time were a currency, how do we navigate Lagos State in a way that can actually be smarter? And that's the essence of Timekeeper. So I will start from a perspective of someone visiting Lagos. So your very first encounter with Lagos is the airport. The airport is a massive problem in Lagos. Number one is just getting off the plane. Sometimes it takes a while. Getting to the carrier, what's that thing? The thing that moves, some baggage where it gets, it takes a while, some time. The immigration has 2 points. First, you meet this guy that looks at your passport, then you meet the immigration guy that stamps your passport. So when you then get out of there, the process of departing from the airport is not very straightforward because you have to sort of figure out where's the car park, or am I getting picked up from here, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is a very elementary stage of this process. I'm trying to develop it as part of a program that I'm doing. But for what I need from you guys, and I would like your help with this, is to sort of think about your cities and think about time as a currency and think about the different spaces through which you can sort of engage with saving time. And the idea is that the more time you save, the more thoughtful you are about that specific place you're in, the more time you get and the more currency you develop, which means that you can then win the game by being smart about how you manage time. So the first thing is, obviously, when you talk about the airport, you have infrastructure. So these are spaces you go to and spend time. The second thing is conversations that you have with people. So these are places that you go to and have conversations with people. So one of the biggest things in Lagos is you meet a policeman or a transport official. What they specialize in is wasting your time because they know that you do not have time. And so they will keep you there and you will pay to get your time back. Now, if you pay that man to get your time back, you lose time as opposed to gaining time because you were not smart there. You did not make a decision that was communally good for Lagos. So what I want us to sort of think about is if I were or you were to help me develop this game, what are the places in your city where you find, or the spaces or the and another thing I want to just say is internet. I find that, and meetings, traffic, I find that I read somewhere that for every 10 years you spend in Lagos, 3 years is spent in traffic. So my entire life is built around Google Maps. I do not move if Google Maps doesn't give me a time estimate. So I will call the person and literally say, we're having a virtual meeting because I'm not going to spend my time. And so I have saved time. As a timekeeper, I make time as a currency. So these are the sort of different considerations that I don't have enough time, but just if you could think about spaces where time is important in your different cities. So I was hoping that I would just write it down and quickly so it's quicker. And then what I could do is sort of start noting down these sort of different spaces, different things within your city that just take time away or give you time, or ways in which we can think about negotiating for more time. or even wild cards, like, a walk to the park. Maybe time does not necessarily mean time like this, but time in life, sort of longevity of life, because you have a better lifestyle. So if I walk to the park and do something like that, I get more time because I've made a decision that is better for my lifestyle. So I'm open to suggestions, not a lot of time. So,
one of the biggest things I found in my office is really bad internet, and we've tried so many different routers. It's literally just our location. And I've been playing with the idea of, okay, if the internet is really bad and I have to send this newsletter out today, rather than me taking literally 2 days just wasting time, why don't I just work remotely, like literally just being, maybe like what you're saying with having virtual meetings, being more flexible with the location from where you're doing your work is something that I don't know how orthodox it would be for an office to be like, internet's not working, I'm going today, but it's something that literally I've done it in the past, and like the turnaround on things has just been different.
So perhaps, would we put that into like institutions? So if you work for a small organization, for example, it's easier for you to do that. Or maybe role play. So in order for you to play the game, you have to be assigned a role of who you are. So you don't think about your institution. So that's something that we could put here. So role play essentially means that maybe we don't need to actually figure out anything here, but just more about talking about the different ways in which time can be applicable. So in your case, what I hear is role play, because you're saying, I can't really think about your institution, because if you were in a bigger institution, you wouldn't have that flexibility. So you have to figure out how you save time there, for example. So I think one of the most important things, one of the things I'm getting out of that is role play is definitely part of this, could be a part of this. Any other suggestions?
My big one is public transport, because I don't drive that much. And there are some public transports in South Africa that are super fast, but only in the morning and the evening. And in the middle of the day, you're far. And then the thing with public transport, like something like the car train, is you can work on the train. So like you'd rather take the car train than drive, because you can actually, you have that 45 minutes to work. So if our public transport was a little bit more like on fire, it would save a lot of time.
So maybe in this regards, what I could think about is saying, so there's timing for public transport. If you make a decision to go on public transport in the mornings, you make, so you manage, so you save time. But if you make a decision to go in the afternoon, and then you add work to that, maybe there's a card that says this is work, then what you can do is you can get points for managing the time. Because your condition is unlikely to change anytime soon. So we have to sort of build the game around what is going on in that city. So I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to change the transport system. I'm going to say there are certain things that you can do from your observation that could actually save time.
In Nairobi, I lose 10 minutes at every building that you enter because there's a security process. They have to frisk you, pat you down. So maybe not entering buildings. I'll have like those super brands. Like you are secure. You don't have a gun. You have whatever.
I like that. I like that. Super brands.
The other part is that service is very slow in Nairobi, so you order food, it takes 30 minutes to arrive. So maybe carry food to the office, or like have a delivery service for lunch.
What are you saving time for? Because if you can go, so for me, like if you can go on a walk, and that's good for your time and your life, then I'm like, okay, cool, taking the day off is very good for you. Having a long, unexpected chat is going to increase your lifespan too. So what is the idea about like, what are we saving time to do? Is it just to, because it's not obviously just to work more.
Yeah.
Or is it that?
Pretty much to work.
If you're from Lagos or Nairobi,
Spend time with family.
this is so negotiation. I can't even tell you. This is such a negotiation.
Cape Town.
No, I mean, everyone's biggest, like,
For Nairobi is to work more.
failure is that's like where our objective lies. And like,
so
someone's telling us is production. What for?
Yeah, so in response to that question, the reason why time is important to me is lifestyle. It's actually not, I would literally, if it rains, Lagos is shut down. like you have no idea. Rain.
Rain is the thing.
Weather.
The DA said they'd fix it, but they haven't.
If it rains, Lagos is shut down. If I want to do anything that is just for my time, I lose my time because I'm forced to give out time to things that are just based around mismanagement or just like, and the idea of this game is to say, it's not necessary to fix the problems that exist in the city, but it's to say if you encounter that problem, how will you design a better system or a better space, which is just very much in line with what my business is trying to do. It's saying how do we co-design solutions that simplify how we solve problems. And that's the whole basis of the game, is to say, and that's why I added lifestyle to this, is because I'm saying I want us to be able to understand also that time in terms of how you get time and then use that for your own lifestyle is also important. Because then it forces you to think about, I'm saving time not because I want to work more, but because you notice that people will tell you, like young wives who are my friends will tell you that, oh, my husband is working at 11 p.m., 12 p.m. I'm like, what kind of meeting is he having at 12 a.m. in the morning? And the guy will say to you, oh no, because I couldn't make the meeting. And everybody in Lagos will say to you, I'm sorry, I'm running late. It's like a default text message you get. So when you say, I'm going to have a meeting at 5, you mean 5:30 or 6, because that's something that is just, when they say African time, there's African time, then there's Lagos time. And so for me, and that's what it is. Maybe the role play allows you to determine what kind of time you're saving. So if you're like a president, for example, your time is, or maybe I don't know, maybe if I'm like, it just depends on my role. My role will determine what I need. If I'm a mother, for example, or a father, or if that's what's important, if your role is father, it means how do you make time to go spend time with your children?
This thing of working with people who don't keep time, it would be interesting to see if, like when you're making whatever kind of partnership with another human being, they get docked points. Like if it's an interactive game, like the other character gets docked points for every time that they're late.
Yeah, okay, so lateness.
Go to you.
Person to work with.
And they give it to you.
Stay clear, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a yell for
for that delayed text message.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Blue ticks.
Not having to iron your clothes.
Ironing. Okay, so that's interesting because in Nigeria, there is a person for every single thing. I can actually get really super cheap labor for somebody to iron my clothes, for someone to drive me, for somebody to feed me, for somebody to, pretty much everything, I can get it done very, very cheap. Now, the question would be, should my game give me points for being smart about employing somebody? Or should I take points away from myself for not being more DIY in the way I think and wasteful?
Depends on minimum wage.
Oh, yeah.
Also, like, depends on like who participates in the game, because the person who then works for you, cheap labor, can't afford to live close to you, has to live in the township somewhere very far away, loses a lot of time. So if there's a communal aim to gain as many points as possible, then it's in everyone's interest.
It's for the city, not just for you.
Yeah, so does that mean every single player has to connect with each other?
Or maybe, or then you should get minus points because you're wasting the person that you're employing for so less money, who's then wasting time that they can't spend with their family. You should get minus
Yeah, but the question is, if they don't get paid money, then they cannot take care of their family.
Yeah,
So-
that would be part of like an encounter that happens as you're going along the game. I think you definitely need to kind of allow for it to have a range of character,
Yeah.
type of person is the player of the game,
Yeah.
across social
Yeah.
class
Yeah.
and like situation.
Because if you're wealthier, you can make time much faster than if you're not. No?
Yeah. And you don't penalize people for being wealthy. Exactly. So that's what my question. Should we? Yeah, you shouldn't penalize people. Taxes. Consideration.
Have you heard of the Ithaca Hour?
No.
It's a time-based currency in a small part of New York State. It's the longest lasting one. I think it was implemented in like 1999, and essentially it's the Ithaca Hour, and 1 hour's work is equal to about $10, but it's a closed-off currency. You can't exchange for like real money, but basically within Ithaca, everyone sort of consented to use this currency together. So your time can get you the currency, but otherwise you just exist within this local community, and it essentially protects a number of like local, maybe like family businesses from being vulnerable to like recession and stuff. But what its original like thing is, as opposed to like a gold standard or whatever, is time. So that's one way, is that you get everyone to agree and then enter into some sort of directory. And so people save their real money, and a lot of the stuff that they're involved in is just local exchange.
Yeah.
So that, and I think there's a couple of other time-based currencies.
They're called time banks. And you get them online and in like communities as well.
So, yeah, any other sort of suggestions? Just to be clear, you guys think that must everybody that plays this game be interconnected in one way or the other? Or is it important that the person you pick, should it be randomized, or should it be that who you prefer? So like if I come to the game and there are 5 players, do I pick who I prefer, or should there be some kind of randomized way of selecting who you are?
Yeah, empathy building. Because then you can play a role that's unlike you. In Kenya and in Lagos, I've always frustrated about kids' transport to school, because children are in the buses as early as 4 a.m. to be taken to school before traffic, which means they're always tired, and they arrive, they leave before the parents, and they arrive after parents. I don't know how you factor that in, because everyone I know.
We'll just put it under transportation,
struggles.
yeah. So there'll be a transportation consideration, yeah.
We might have seen this movie, but there's a movie called Time, where basically
Justin Timberlake.
time
Yeah.
and they've got interesting things like where you can give time to the other, which I think is quite an interesting idea, where you can pass on your time to the other person. And, you can gamble with the time. That might be interesting.
Yeah.
Time traveling and the sci-fi component to that, and like techniques of time traveling.
Yeah, so you can pick a card that says move back in time and make a different decision. Yeah.
Will this game interact with like the real world potentially?
So it's based on the city.
Board game.
So yeah, it's based on the city. So the way I see it now is based on Lagos. So everything about it is literally real world. So that's why I said, starting with the airport, I literally gave so everything that I do, if there's the airport, is going to be based on real life situation in Lagos.
Could it interact with the airport, like really, in real time? That might be
Yeah.
like, I mean, what are those, the game where people were bumping into themselves because they were like, the
Pokemon Go.
Yeah, Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Like when it interacts with, that might be,
Virtual
I
reality.
think that would be a nightmare in Nigeria. Do people play Pokemon Go in Lagos? No. But I think, but there might be taking people to certain spaces in the city to play this game that could be quite fun in terms of exploring the city and exploring how.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much, guys. This was very helpful as a start. This is the first time I've ever had this conversation. So if I ever make this game a reality, I will say this is where it all started. Yeah.
Please make it a reality.
Well, in order to make it, to even start the process, I have applied for a fund, but I need to match that fund with £20,000 exactly, because the fund I'm applying for is 20,000, which is not a lot. I don't think it is.
Not if
No.
Lagos and Nairobi.
Is it? Is it? Is it?
They go to Southern Alabama.
You need time.
I don't know. It's them that want. I don't even understand because.
Like virtual reality goggles. That's
No.
somehow what I'm imagining.
I actually don't know why I need to match the fund with so much, because the fund in itself is £20,000. So I don't know why I need to find £20,000. But that's one way, which is an assured sort of way of me starting this project. But I also spoke to a few gaming companies in Lagos. And the first thing the lady said to me is, we will own the... She first starts talking about the ownership, which is, I guess, a business way of approaching it. But it hasn't really gotten the kind of, and maybe because I've also not formulated what this game will be like, but in order to actually start that process, you need to actually support the idea of bringing people together to think through all of this. So thank you for your free consultation. Yeah, I can start somewhere, yeah. But yeah, definitely if I make this a reality, then that's something I'm very interested in doing. I will let you guys know. Yeah. Thank you all.